Well, I came to Brazil to do research and to write. And as an American anthropologist, I only intended to stay for a few years and then return to the States. But as I began to penetrate the culture of the Baiano people, particularly the Afro-Brazilians, I began to find deeper and deeper layers of cultural symbolism. Eventually, I ended up staying in Brazil for 10 years. My original approach was to write a book about Brazil and use the research materials that I had gathered over the years to make a documentary. About 8 years into gathering research and writing, I sort of veered off and ended up writing a book about cross-cultural relationships between Black American men and Brazilian women. At the time, there seemed to be a lot of interest in the subject because many Black American men were coming to Brazil for vacations and to meet Brazilian women. Some were even moving to Brazil to live. Already, I had a considerable amount of research at my disposal. So I ended up writing 2 books about Brazil and using the research materials to plan out the documentary. For me, it all seems to begin with writing. Now in the documentary, I tried to capture as many different aspects of Baiano culture, life in Salvador, and in the Brazilian state of Bahia as I thought was important. I didn't feature much about the interior or the rural areas of Bahia because it's pretty grim there. Very dry land. They call it the Caatinga. It's poor and a lot of human suffering. I wanted to highlight the good contributions of the Baiano people, and Salvador is the 3rd largest city in Brazil with a considerable amount of tourism. Unlike Rio de Janeiro, which is the cosmopolitan city of Brazil, or Sao Paulo, which is the financial center of Brazil, Salvador is one of the most cultural cities of Brazil. And in terms of urbanization, Salvador is the city with the largest Black population outside of Africa. Actually, Brazil began here because Salvador was the first capital of Brazil. The city itself is an architectural and historical masterpiece. Many of the buildings were built in the style of the old European Baroque era. There is actually a church here whose entire interior is carved in gold. São Francisco in Pelourinho. It's quite amazing. Also, Salvador has about 50 miles of some of the most beautiful beaches you could imagine. Its calm inlets are ideal for swimming and all sorts of water sports, or for just relaxing and sunning. Really beautiful white sandy beaches. Now the Baiano people are a very close-knit people. They are very supportive of each other and at the same time very dependent upon each other. They have a cultural practice of extending family ties to close friends, not actual blood members of the family, but people that have been close friends, especially in times of difficulties. They treat them with the same respect and individualized attention they would give to a family member. Another characteristic that makes the Baiano people, the Afro-Brazilians in particular, special and unique is the manner in which they have maintained through the centuries in an almost pure form many African cultural elements, structures, ideologies, principles, and practices. For example, in the religion of Candomblé, the religious services are still held in the Yoruba language, not Brazilian Portuguese. So they have in fact maintained their original African language throughout the period of slavery in Brazil. This is in direct contrast to the African descendants that were transplanted to Central and North America, who lost their native languages as a result of slavery. The study of Afro-Latinos is something that needs more research and exposure. A few years ago, Skip Gates, that is Henry Louis Gates of Harvard, did a documentary entitled Blacks in Latin America. However, he only highlighted a few countries and mostly in Central America. The only countries, I believe, in South America that he included in his documentary were Peru and Brazil. The fact of the matter is, there are Afro-Latinos in every country in South America. For example, there are Afro-Bolivians, Afro-Chileans, Afro-Colombians, Afro-Ecuadorians, Afro-Paraguayans, Afro-Uruguayans, Afro-Venezuelans, etc. This area needs more research and exposure, not only because it signifies important relationships and similarities between African descendants spread out throughout the Americas, but it also indicates the interconnectivity of the Black diaspora.